you cannot contextualize anything you're reading right now when it comes to the Jewish population and the immigrants if you don't understand the architect and the founder of Zionism. You need to research that first. Hold on.
Zionism and Imperialism, The Historical Origins by Abdul Wahab Kayali. Since this part of the paper here says, like, the reasons for Zionism all very conveniently play into kind of like this Marxist lens that, like, oh, well, the reason why Zionism exists is because of European imperialism, the failure of liberalism and the ideas of equality and democracy, and the spread of aggressive European nationalism. I don't know. I would be interested in seeing if any of this is true.
It's very condescending in any way.
Hold on. I'm not calling you a Nazi. I don't think any of this has to do with Nazism. God, I'm so triggered. I'm still triggered that Lycan linked me that paper from the terrorist guy. I'm still triggered reading that paper.
Has your stance on the Israel-Palestine thing changed at all yet?
Well, I mean, like, everything I read, I'm trying to, like I had a couple subreddit posts I read recently that were pretty pro-Palestinian, but, like, all of the historical foundation, everything I read kind of, like, pushes me further and further towards the Israel thing, like, pretty clearly. But, I mean, like, be careful what you read. Like, I'm still trying to do more reading and everything, but, I mean...
Yeah, like, the most morally questionable thing, obviously, was, them immigrating back into Israel in the first place and displacing Palestinians, but again, like, it seemed like good faith negotiations were trying to be had, and Palestinians just wouldn't negotiate. They just
although to be clear, that was good faith negotiations that Jewish people were trying to have after all of them moved to a land where Palestinians weren't really ready for all of them to move there, right? So of course it's quote unquote good faith, but after hundreds of thousands of Jewish people were resettled there by Europe, right?
Yeah, that was the most morally questionable thing at the time.
Sure,
But,
although I don't know
like,
if that's morally questionable, because, like, my understanding is I believe Jewish people were here, they were genuinely here before Palestinian people, but then they got, like, kicked out by the Romans, and then I think by Arab conquest. So I don't know, but I'm sure there's, like, a Palestinian response to that. Like, what is the response to Jewish people saying they were here prior to that? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing, too. Like, Palestinians will say they have a claim to the land because they were there for X period of time, but, like, Jews could say that same thing, too. So I don't think there's a very hard right or wrong on either side on that front. But, like, when I look at a lot of the issues, like, in modern times, like on the West Bank, I'm starting to, like, kind of understand the Israeli position a little bit more, because so many of these Palestinians are, like, insanely, ridiculously racist towards Jews. Like, so are the Israelis. A lot of those settlers are, like, I was watching a Vice documentary where, like, this woman openly and unashamedly admitted she, like, spits at whatever Arab people she sees. But there's a different kind of, like, racism where Palestinians completely deny the Holocaust, think Jews should have been Holocausted, and they'll just say, if only the Holocaust actually happened. And they're the ones who are oftentimes starting shit.
Yeah, I understand.
The media seems
I understand what you're saying. This is the only thing that I would implore you to consider, and it's not an excuse, but it's something to keep in mind, okay? We had 9/11 in the United States, right? We had a terrorist attack. That one attack was enough to make us, like, hate Arabs for, like, the next, like, 10 fucking years, maybe more. Right? Remember, people forget this, but Donald Trump ran initially under a platform if he wanted to ban all Muslims from coming to the United States. So that stuck with us. And that was by one attack. You're looking at a group of people that have been under constant conflict from Israel and view Israel as enjoying wide support from the West, while the West has essentially won the Cold War and toppled, like, how much of the Middle East. So, like, it's not acceptable, but it's understandable why Palestinian people would look at Jewish people as dogs that should have been wiped out in the Holocaust because fuck them and fuck the living conditions they have, et cetera, right?
That seems to be the attitude they had before they even started settling in Palestine.
Jewish people lived in Palestine under Ottoman rule alongside Palestinians, and I think they more or less got along. Like, Palestinian Jews and Palestinian Arabs, I think, lived alongside each other, more or less got along with each other now.
It seems to me from the reading I've done that Palestinians, before the large Jewish migration, they were very racist, very anti-Jew, and they at that time were still having the rhetoric of denying the Holocaust.
Wait, before the Holocaust happened, or?
No, after the Holocaust happened.
Well, after the Holocaust happened, you'd already had Jews being settled there for fucking 20 years, right? So of course they probably started to fucking hate them, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because the Mandate Palestine started in like 1920 or 1921. So there had already been for decades Jewish people settling there. There'd already been a lot of back and forth violence and conflict. But I believe that under the Ottoman Empire, one of the big ways that the Ottoman Empire maintained its wide empire was by having people that lived under their borders all be fucking chill with each other. Like under the Ottoman Empire, you couldn't have all these different groups of people living in different regions fucking murdering each other. It would have like collapsed. And I think for a bit it did. I think it contracted a bit as it tried to get its shit under control. But under the Ottoman rule, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Jews and Palestinians and people in different regions tended to live okay with each other. I think. I could be wrong. That some people are saying I'm wrong and some people are saying I'm right. So maybe that's worth reading about. But
maybe I have to read a bit more about that. But yeah, my understanding was they never really got along. And there was always this sort of hatred and more minor violence against the Jewish population. So, like every time I look up these sort of major events, it always seems like the Palestinians were the ones who kind of started it first. So the idea that, well, it's kind of understandable how Palestinians today are so racist against Jews and are like literally pro-Holocaust is because the same reason why Americans hated Arabs so much after 9/11. Like again, it just seems like every situation, Palestinians were the ones to like start it first.
Yeah, but I mean, it depends on what you mean by start it first, because from their perspective, Britain started it, or Jewish people started it by settling as colonizers. So that was the start. And then from there, it's just been a continual conflict back and forth, basically.
But again, they were the ones to start the violence first. That's what I mean.
Sure. But I mean, they would consider settling a state or settling land to be a form of political violence, and then declaring an independent state would be another form of political violence. But again, Jews were the ones who wanted to negotiate, and then they said, no, fuck you. And then they're the ones who attacked first, and then they acted like crybabies and said, oh, Jews are evil, when they were the ones who attacked first. And then I understand, but it would be it's like,
that they lost.
Sure, but it's like me going into your house and taking over your garage and then saying like, let's negotiate. Like, I just want to own your garage, and then you can have the rest of your house. And then you coming in and attacking me because you're like, fuck you, get the fuck out of my garage. And then I fight back. And now let's say I capture like your garage and your basement. And I'm like, okay, well, let's make a deal about like the garage and the basement. And you're like, well, no, fuck you, you're in my house still. And then we fight again, and now I take over your living room. Like, it seems like I'm only up to 1950, but it kind of seems like the history of this region is the Jewish people get there, they get a foothold there, and then negotiations go back and forth. The Palestinians say no. The Israelis say, okay, fine, let's fight. They take more territory. Then Israel is like, do you want to chill now? And they're like, I didn't hear no fucking bell. And then they fight more, then they lose more, and that just seems to be the history of the region over and over again. And now they're basically saying like, okay, listen, let's go all the way back to 48, and let's go back to the original UN resolution. I want those borders. I fucked up, I'm sorry. Like, just go back to living in my garage. It's kind of what it seems like it's going on. But
no. I would say your average Palestinian, the river to the sea bullshit rhetoric. That's what they want. They don't.
I don't know if that's the average Palestinian. It's hard to tell right now. I think that's just foreign. Also, I would be careful. If you've got like a Palestinian refugee, they probably don't know fuck all about any of this. I wouldn't trust anybody that calls themselves a Palestinian refugee, because these guys might be like third generation Brits or Americans, unless they've actually done reading or research here. Like, I wouldn't trust a single fucking thing they have to say. And same thing with like the young people protesting at colleges and shit. These people don't know fucking anything about the region or the conflict. Well, just because you've got like some bloodline or some ethnic tie to the land doesn't mean you know dick all about it. I know plenty of real life people with Palestinian descent that couldn't find Palestine on a fucking map, okay? Unironically. So yeah. But I'm just saying, so like, I wouldn't put a bunch of stock into like the college kids that are protesting right now that like every Palestinian wants to wipe Israel off the map.
Well, I'm not talking about that.
Sure.
I'm not talking about the college kids. I'm like, again, I've tried to find as much evidence as I could. I've looked at like Pew Research data. I've looked at like news reports, Al Jazeera, like all these pro-Palestinian kind of sources. It looks like to me that your average Palestinian believes in that from the river to the sea bull crap, and it seems to be more prevalent in the younger generations, and that may have been because of the of Hamas, like them radicalizing children.
Wait, so where? I'm curious. Where can I find this? So if I was to Google like polling data, Palestine, existence of Israel, or something, like what would I?
Yeah, I would just look at some of the Pew Research stats. The earliest, the latest I could find was from around 08, 09. That wasn't about whether or not it wasn't about the two-state solution. It was about Hamas support. But yeah, I'd look at the Israel polling data. I'd look at Palestinian sort of news sources like Al Jazeera.
Melman, do Palestinians support Hamas? Polls paint a murky picture. Well, I'm curious if you can link me or show me like where are polls with.
Let me see if I can quickly find it. So it's fairly easy to actually find. It's easy to find data across surrounding regions. So like Jordan, Egypt, areas like that. Not quite as easy. Where should I post this, by the way?
Just DM it to me.
Okay, sure. Message.
Oh, thank you, Eric. Hold on.
So that was the last. That was the latest Pew Research poll I could find on support of Hamas. If you look at surrounding regions, it is very high. Since Hamas controls so much of the media there, I would assume they do enjoy a lot of support within Gaza. And again, if you look at a lot of the news reports, if you look at like street interviews and stuff, I'm getting the feeling that the younger generation has been more radicalized than the older generation.
Sure, that's probably always going to be true kind of for young people. I'm looking at a foreign affairs article. This is from 2023, the Arab Barometer Wave 8 in Gaza. I guess these are some kind of Arab pollsters for how much trust do you have in the Hamas-led government. I'm seeing about 23% say not a lot, and like 45% say none at all. So it seems like the opinions of Hamas are not that good. Yeah.
That doesn't exactly answer the question of whether or not they support their policies. It's specifically about whether or not they actually trust the government, like whether or not they can be trusted to enact said policies, whether or not the way in which they go about supporting said policies is good. Wait, what was the source?
Here, it's a foreign affairs article that's linking data from the Arab Barometer Wave 8. I just linked that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because this Pew Research is 14 years old, and this region changes pretty quickly, so...
Yeah. All right, well, I'll look at that. Thanks for sending me it.
Okay.
Okay, well, take care.
Be careful.
I'll look into that more.
Have fun. Why doesn't VG just link his shit? Every time you ask for a source, seems to have old, outdated, irrelevant shit. Yeah, I don't want to make an accusation. I'm not sure, but it sounds like I think he does his own research, but sometimes it feels like he gets his research from someone else, or he hears it in a video, and then he doesn't have the original source now. That's why usually when he comes, I'm like, give me the source, let me see the source, so I can like read it and evaluate what's being said. Yeah. Or maybe he just doesn't save his links. I don't know. I honestly believe What you should obtain is a concrete example, a microcosm showing how Jewish-Palestinian coexistence broke down, besides just seeing it through broad trends. A great case of this is the documentary Jaffa, the Orange's Clockwork, which is probably one of the best documentaries I've seen. I highly recommended. Focuses on the orange cultivation sector, but understanding the case gives you a really valuable lens that describes things generally. Jaffa, the Orange's Clockwork. Can I find this on... Is this going to be on YouTube? Full movie HD. Hello? What's up? Who joined?
I don't know who this other guy is.
Oh, what do you want?
How much research have you done on Zionism?
What do you mean on Zionism?
The Zionist project predates World War II in 1948. You cannot contextualize anything you're reading right now when it comes to the Jewish population and the immigrants if you don't understand the architect and the founder of Zionism. You have to.
Okay. What do you want me to understand?
The entire project, the goal, the reason the immigrants are coming there. When you're talking about, well, hey, Palestinians didn't accept this deal, didn't accept that deal, you have to understand where the Jews settling in the nation are, what they're looking to do. If that group's
my understanding is what they're looking to do is they're looking to have
expansion.
like a nation state, you know, to safeguard the Jewish people
and to expand further and further into the land. So the fact that they gave them an advantage in one of those offerings that was controlled by 80% of the Palestinians.
I don't think any part of Israel history shows them necessarily like looking to aggressively expand over and over again.
Absolutely.
Which part?
You need to research that first. You have to research it. You have to understand everything they wanted to do.
Wait, well,
this predates it. You got to look up the... Hold on. I'll tell you the dude's name.
Are you talking about the Balfour Declaration from 1917?
Hold on.
Because I'm pretty sure that declaration was literally like, what, like 30 words? And we read everything around that. I don't think there was anything relating to that or surrounding that or drives for Zionism from Zionist groups.
Dude, I sent you DM yesterday with all the shit you need to look up.
Well, bro, I haven't even finished reading this. I'm just like getting my footing here.
I'm telling you now that you're getting your footing here, but remember then, if you don't do it now, you're going to have to go back and recontextualize after you look up the Zionist stuff.
Tell me, can you just tell me what I'm missing, or?
No, because I'm not good enough to speak at long form on it.
Wait,
but you need to look up Theodore Herzl.
Wait, how do you know? Wait,
hold on,
wait. To be clear, hold on. No. There is no, when you say go look up one guy, this is like Nazi talking points. This doesn't mean anything. I'm looking for broad movements.
I'm looking for,
yeah. No, I'm just saying that like you need to look up Theodore blah blah blah. That doesn't tell me anything, especially if you don't know anything about him. Like what am I missing, or
you
what
need
part
to
of
look
the
up Zionism? You need to look up the Zionist movement. You need to read about the history of the Zionist movement.
I know
that
a
was
little
a very
bit. Sure,
thing.
I know a little bit of the history of the Zionist movement in regards to finally getting that Balfour Declaration basically signed off on by Great Britain and all of the different work internationally and all the different groups that were involved in getting that. Do I need to look up pre-Balfour Declaration? Like, why does that matter? I'm just looking at what did nations support. What did mandate Palestine and the British mandate for Palestine and the moving of Israel and everything there? Like, what did that look like? What am I missing? What context am I missing from that?
All those people settling aren't there just to take over whatever land they can be given. First of all, you have to contend with whether or not that land should be given, because again, it was under British control. It was Ottoman land. Under British control, they're allowing Jewish settlers to come in droves and take over that land. The deals they're offering are giving a lot of favorable, significant portions of that land to Jewish settlers over Palestinians. And 3, they don't plan to just keep the land they have. They plan to expand and take over all of what is now Israel, Gaza, West Bank.
Okay.
That is the goal.
Can you show me?
That was the goal.
Where can I find this stated somewhere?
I will get it for you. I'm downstairs walking my dog.
Okay, because it seems to me like the only way that Israel has gotten more land is when other people have tried to invade them first.
I got some good info on that too, so I'll get that for you.
All right, let me know. Be careful.
All right, bye.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, what's up?
Just a quick question. I just tuned in, and I hope you don't think this is a stupid question, but I'm watching you do your research, and I really appreciate like the way you do it. So, like I said, I hope you don't think it's a stupid question. What program is that you're using to like organize your notes and your article? I see it says like articles, Ben Shapiro material.
Oh, it's just called Obsidian.
Obsidian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it. Because I I have I use like Google Word, and
Google Word is
like
good
the Word
too. I like Obsidian because you can like download it to a bunch of different devices, and like if you pay a monthly fee or something, you can like auto sync it through everything, and it's just convenient. But
yeah, no, it looks pretty cool that you can organize things and put little tabs to the left. All right, that's it. Yeah, you too. Bye.
Oh, here, we'll just read this part just to make Lycan happy. Between 1882 and 1903, approximately 35,000 Jews moved to Palestine, known as the First Aliyah. In the Russian Empire, Jews faced growing persecution and legal restrictions. Half the world's Jews lived in the Russian Empire, where they were restricted to living in the Pale of Settlement. Severe pogroms in the early 1880s and legal repression led to 2 million Jews emigrating from the Russian Empire. 1.5 million went to the United States. Popular destinations were also Germany, France, England, Holland, Argentina, and Palestine. Oh, do you think this is where David Pakman's parents come from, or grandparents? Russian Jews established the Bilu and Hovevi Zion, Lovers of Zion movements, with the aim of settling in Palestine. In 1878, Russian Jewish immigrants established the village of Petah Tikva, followed by Rishon LeZion. You can put a equal underneath the section to make them collapsible. It's sometimes helpful underneath the title of a section. Wait, what? Like that? You fucking liar. Wait, I think these are already collapsible. Fuck you. Irk. Oh, link here. $5 to rent. Really good. Oh, can I rent this on like Amazon or YouTube? How does Vimeo have a fucking rental platform? The existing Ashkenazi Jewish communities were concentrated in the 4 holy cities, extremely poor and relied on donations, halukah, from groups abroad, while the new settlements were small farming communities, but still relied on funding from the French Baron Edmund James de Rothschild. No, but I can send you a free version if you're reticent. No, it's all good. I'll do something. Who sought to establish profitable enterprises. Many early migrants could not find work and left, but despite the problems, many settlements arose and the community grew. After the Ottoman conquest of Yemen in 1881, a large number of Yemenite Jews also emigrated to Palestine, often driven by Messianism. What does this mean? Messianism is the belief in the advent of the Messiah who acts as the savior of a group of people. Messianism originated as Zoroastrianism, religious belief, and followed to Abrahamic religions. But other religions have Messianism-related concepts. Religions of Messiah concepts include Judaism. Jesus. In Judaism, the Messiah will be a future king from the line of David and redeemer of the Jewish people and humanity. Is the line of David still alive? Is there like a person here? King David. And Judaism is based on text in the Hebrew Bible. According to the Bible, blah, 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 Judaism. Is this line still alive? Where are my Jewish people in chat? Do I have any of you David descendants here? Is David even a real person? The Israeli King David? Or is this just like a Bible guy? I don't know. It's Deepak. The Rothschilds. There isn't a known line, but David is a historical figure. Yes, he lives in Chicago. The Ethiopian king claims ancestry. Interesting. Okay. I know Lycan didn't just link me like a 300-page paper, did he? Let's see. Oh, 15 pages. Zionism and Imperialism, The Historical Origins by Abdul Wahab Kayali. Oh boy. Can somebody link me this paper? Always good to be reminded how little Destiny knows about Jewish stuff. Yeah, because you Jews don't even give a fuck about your religion, okay? Half you Orthodox Jews just spend your whole lives trying to convert like less faithful Jewish people back to the religion anyway, okay? Fuck you guys. It's not my fault you guys suck at your religion, okay? I know what all the Muslims think because they're militantly shoving it down my throat on Twitter all day, okay? And I know what Christians think because Christians fucking run the United States. I don't know what Jewish people think. I don't know what any of you fuckers do, okay? You guys get educated, do investment banking, and then you live in expensive houses. Fuck you. And you run Hollywood. I see what you guys are doing out there. Oh no, page not found. Irk, what are you doing? Oh, you got it. Lameo, every Hasid I meet always tries to get me to go to temple with them when I tell them I'm an atheist now. Yeah, I think, I could be wrong, don't quote me on this, but I think Jews aren't allowed to proselytize to non-Jews. But like, I think your goal is to, isn't your goal to like bring other Jews back into the faith more? So like if you run into another Jew and he's not going to temple or Sabbath or whatever bullshit, your goal is to like get him to start going again or some shit. I think that's like what they obsess over. I could be wrong because I don't know fuck all about the religion of Judaism. You guys learn Hebrew for your shit. It's weird, all right? All right, what did Lycan read us, or link us? Zionism as a modern political creed arose as a reaction to three interacting challenges or problems facing Europe in the 19th century, the heyday of Western imperialism. Oh boy. The first of these was the growth and expansion of European imperialism, which necessitated... oh, dude, my brain is actually poisoned from Twitter. As soon as I start reading, like, imperialism, Western, colonial, I just, like, my brain shuts off. Okay. Fair and balanced. Let's read this. Sorry. Jesus. Should I read up this guy's background? No, because I'm just poisoning the well. I know that's what I'm doing. I'm just poisoning the well. Okay. The first of these was the growth and expansion of European imperialism, which necessitated the search for new sources of raw materials and markets for the finished products, in addition to securing the lines of commercial and military communication. The importance of the Arab lands as the gateway to Africa and the bridge to Asia was made evident by Napoleon's campaign in 1797 to 1799. Interesting. Yet the dangers of an independent state comprising Egypt and other parts of the Arab world set up by Muhammad Ali became clear soon after. Thus, the need for stifling any nascent, I think? Independent state, doubly threatening to imperialism later on in the wake of the spread of Arab nationalist sentiment, became increasingly persistent as the Ottoman Empire, the sick man of Europe, drifted further towards disintegration. Nascent. Amazes me, nascent. Secondly, the failure of European liberalism and the ideas of equality and democracy to incorporate and assimilate the Jew were combined with the capitalist... Is this guy like a Marxist-Leninist? What is this guy? Holy shit. This paper. Wait, what does this guy do? I'm so curious. Department of Political Science. It's Hassan's alt. Okay. This paper was written in 1977. That's not the guy. Oh, this paper was written in 1977? Oh, okay. Oh, it was written in 1977. Okay. Zionism and Imperialism, the Historical Origins. Okay. Well. And assimilate the Jew were combined with the capitalist crisis in Eastern Europe that followed in the wake of the adoption of industrialization, with the consequent loss of vocation for a great number of Jews who could not easily adjust to the transformation of the feudal economic system. It is important to note that this separation of the Jews from their environments encouraged a Jewish apartness, which was in the past a contributory factor to the phenomenon of anti-Jewishness. So Jewish people couldn't industrialize? They were stuck in their farms and their kibbutzes? Thirdly, the spread of aggressive and chauvinist nationalism in Europe stressed racial qualities and the racial basis of the nation state, as well as racial superiority and the need for expansionism. Lebensraum, which was diverted to overseas colonies and possessions. Superiority, exploitation, and domination were upheld as a civilizational mission under the notion of the white man's burden. These ideas and notions played a crucial role in the ideological formulation of Zionism, as well as a guiding light for its founders. These challenges were known as the Eastern Question, or the Syrian Question, and the Jewish Question. We shall see that it was the first question which prompted the major imperialist figures to propose the idea of creating a client Jewish settler state in Palestine, primarily designed to block the fulfillment of unity and independence in that important area of the world, and to serve the interests of the imperialist sponsors and protectors of that state. The events of the latter part of the century were conducive to the creation of what amounted to a consensus of opinion among the imperialist and Western politicians, with the cooperation of Western Jewish capital and anti-Semites everywhere in favor of Zionism and the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. I'll give this like 2 more pages. Okay. Towards the end of the 18th century, the Western powers' interest in the Arab area intensified as the aging Ottoman Empire became increasingly dependent on the European powers, which obtained privileges, footholds, and spheres of influence of the empire itself. These powers sought to establish direct links with the various populations and religious sects in the area. Thus, eventually, France was to become the protector of the Catholic communities in Syria. Which part of the paper do you disagree with? I guess one is, I don't know what I'm actually reading here. Like, or I don't know what, I guess I don't know as much. For economics, I know what to expect for sourcing. I don't know what as much to expect for sourcing in historical papers. Like, there's a lot of pretty strong claims that are being laid out here. Are these just taken for granted by scholars? Like, these are just actually so obviously true that they don't even bother sourcing them? Or is this... So, like, for instance, this part of the paper here says, like, the reasons for Zionism all very conveniently play into kind of like this Marxist lens that, like, oh, well, the reason why Zionism exists is because of European imperialism and the search for raw materials and markets to sell goods to, the importance of controlling land, the failure of liberalism and the ideas of equality and democracy, and the spread of aggressive European nationalism. I don't know. I would be interested in seeing if any of this is true. My understanding is that when we read so much about that the Balfour Declaration, Jesus Christ, and it seemed like there was a genuine fervor for Jewish people around the world in the wake of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, especially, that they really wanted to establish a state for themselves somewhere. And it doesn't feel like the West was a hardcore supporter of Israel in that endeavor. Like, I would be really curious, like, I need some facts to support that. So, for instance, what we just read about the Israel Declaration of Independence, why didn't the United States or the West, why didn't they support them in their fight against the other Arab nations? Or why was Britain constantly trying to limit the amount of Jewish settlers to appease the Arab population when it was Mandate Palestine, right? Those are two actions, and I barely know anything about this history right now. So far, I would say barely. I've read a Wikipedia article, right? But those are two actions that fly in the face of the idea that Britain was, like, desperately trying to set up the country of Israel. So I'm curious where but here, this obviously claims completely opposite, but there's not a single source, there's not a footnote or anything in here for me to read. Yeah, so I don't know. It just seems like a trash paper. But I don't know. I mean, who knows? I could be wrong. This guy's probably got a PhD. Who the fuck am I? It's during his Palestine campaign, 1799, that Napoleon, motivated by his war needs and later on by his ambition to attract the loyal... Oh, and then also, like, this thing here. Is it really true? Because we read that there were pogroms and stuff in pre-Stalinist Russia, pre-Soviet Russia, or I think it would just be pre-Stalinist Russia, that the Russian Empire was a hostile place for Jewish people, and that was a big push factor. Whereas in this paper, it sounds like he's basically just saying Jewish people were too retarded to keep up with, like, technology. Am I reading that wrong? The failure of European liberalism and the ideas of equality and democracy to incorporate and assimilate the Jew, were combined with the capitalist crisis in Eastern Europe that followed in the wake of the adoption of industrialization, with the consequent loss of vocation for a great number of Jews who could not easily adjust to the transformation of the feudal economic system. Is that true? I've never heard that in my entire life, that Jewish people had a difficulty adopting to, like, industrialization. And now, I don't know anything. Maybe that is the case of that, but that's the first time I've ever heard a claim like this ever put forth in my entire life. I've never in my life heard this claim put forth that, like, oh, Jews just have a really hard time adapting to, like, yeah, that's an insane statement. Well, I shouldn't say that it's insane because my historical knowledge is limited. I've never heard this in my entire life, though. But yeah. And then I'm also racist because of the guy's name too. But yeah, anyway, I'm sorry. But I'll give it a few more pages. We'll see if yeah. Towards the end of the 18th century, the Western powers' interest in the Arab area intensified. We read this. Thus, eventually, France was to become the protector of the Catholic communities in Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine, while the Orthodox Christians came under Russian protection. It was during his Palestinian campaign in 1799 that Napoleon, motivated by his war needs and later on by his ambition to attract the loyalty of the Jews as agents throughout the world, issued his call for the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem and the return of the Jews to Palestine for political purposes. This campaign itself aroused British interest in Palestine as it posed a threat to the British overland route to India. When Muhammad Ali of Egypt embarked on his ambitious plan to modernize Egypt and build a strong independent state comprising Egypt, Greater Syria, and the Arab Peninsula. During the first decades of the 19th century, the British government adopted... can somebody tell me what this is published into? I'm very curious. Or is it really this common that there are no footnotes in historical papers that are published in peer-reviewed journals? The British government adopted a course of direct military intervention. It was instrumental in driving the armies of Ibrahim Pasha back to Egypt. Muhammad Ali's advance into Syria opened the Syrian question. New British policies were formed as a result. One of the keys to the new approach was Palestine. The Jews a prominent part of its spearhead. In 1838, it's published in this, the Journal of Palestine Studies. Gotcha. Okay. In 1838, the British decided to station a British consular agent in Jerusalem, and the following year opened the first European consulate in that city. During the 1840s and 1850s, the British government, which had no protégés of its own, established a connection with the Jews in Palestine, around 9,700 in all, the Druze in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. Behind the protection of trade and religious minorities, there lay the major political and strategic interests of the powers. During the 1840s and 50s, the British government had no protégé. Oh, he does cite some things down here, finally, Jesus. From its start, British presence in Palestine. Oh, he has a footnote for this claim here. Albert Hourani, Ottoman Reform and the Politics of Notables, and Beginnings of Modernization in the Middle East, the 19th Century. Do you think do you think this book is published somewhere? I'm actually so curious if the footnotes... Here's like a dirty little secret. In low impact papers, if you read, if you actually go and follow the sources for their footnotes, it is not always the case that the original source backs up the summary statement that some even PhD level writers will put in their papers. Not to say that's not the case here, but I'm so curious if I could find this book. If somebody could find this book, I would love you for a long time. And the citation is to a 27-page range. That was one of the things that set me off. Yeah, I see that's 41 to 68. Like, what I'd be curious about here is, did the British government establish a connection specifically with the Jews in Palestine, or did they establish a connection with all of the people in Palestine, including the Jewish people? Or was it actually specifically just to the... I'm curious about this fact. I'm really, really, really curious. So basically what David Irving did, this is exactly what David Irving did. Yeah. But anyway, from its start, British presence in Palestine was associated with the promotion of Jewish interests. This question of British protection of Jews became, however, and remained for many years, the principal concern of the British consulate of Jerusalem. Albert Hampson, the British consul in Jerusalem, in relation to the Jews of Palestine, 1838 to 1914, part 1, and then a page number, I think. Destiny, majored in history and uni history papers, must cite sources. Hourani is a good source, super dry. Okay. Why does it sound like I have a Tesla coil in? Oh, because I love Tesla. The formulation framework of British imperial policy in the area was best drawn out by its architect, Foreign Secretary Viscount Palmerston, in a letter to the British ambassador at Constantinople explaining why the Ottoman Sultan should encourage Jewish immigration to Palestine. Palmerston wrote, "The Jewish people, if returning under the sanction and protection and the invitation of the Sultan, would be a check upon any future evil designs of Muhammad Ali or his successor." It is remarkable indeed that Palmerston used the term Jewish people in reference to a racial religious unity, as there were no other bonds between the Jews at a time when even prominent Jews were speaking of Jewish communities and when the Jewish assimilationist movement... Also noteworthy was the use of the word returning, as if history stood still for 2,000 years, and the adoption of religious memories as a title deed with utter disregard, nay, in studied direct opposition to the will of the inhabitants of the land. All this preceded the conversion of the father of Zionism to Zionism and the official birth of the movement by more than half a century. Nor was Palmerston's concept a bolt in the sky British imperial policy. This particular idea of erecting a human barrier colonial Jewish settler state in Palestine to serve imperial interests under the cover of a variety of moral pretensions was shared and upheld by a number of prominent British imperialist prime ministers. Okay, I think I'm done with this. Many of the patrons of Zionism were not philo-Semites, as is sometimes assumed. Balfour's pro-Zionist stance was initiated by Herzl's arguments for a British Royal Commission on the immigration of Jews to Britain, that diverting the Jews to Palestine was the solution to that British problem. Lawrence Oliphant provides a very clear-cut case of the contradiction between the moral and... Is there like an impact? Has this page been like cited by anybody? Does anybody know? Is there like a way to look that up? If you Google around, you can find that article everywhere, but nothing about the author. Yeah, I'm curious. Oh boy. And then Lycan linked me a video. I linked the paper he cited that you asked for. Just Brandon, wait, can you link again? Okay, he cited pages 41 to 68 in this paper. Oh, he cited the entire paper. Is 41 through 68. Based. Absolute Giga Chad. Beginnings of modernization in the Middle East, the 19th century. Fuck it, let's go for a little bit. It is a commonplace that we cut up history into periods at our peril. The artificial frontiers made for convenience may seem to be real, and a new generation of historians will have to spend time removing them. Nevertheless, to think we must distinguish, and the best we can do is try to make divisions which reveal something important about the process we are studying. The old division of history in terms of states and dynasties was not without its value. The imposition, for example, of Ottoman rule on the western part of the Muslim world was an event of great importance, however we look at it, but it is too simple and therefore misleading to go beyond that and make a further distinction simply in terms of the strength or weakness of Ottoman rule. The traditional division of a period of Ottoman greatness followed by one of Ottoman decline does not help us much to find out what really happened. Perhaps it would be more satisfactory to begin by making a distinction in terms of the kind of sources which we as historians must use. This might have a significance beyond itself, both because the sources we use to help determine the emphasis we place within the complex whole of the historical process, and because the appearance of a new and important type of source, or the disappearance of an old one, may reveal a change in the social order or intellectual life. Okay, I don't know if I want to read this whole thing right now, because it would probably take me about 30 minutes. Can people look, can you guys look through this and see if you can find anything about Britain specifically setting up like embassies or emirates here just to confer with Jewish people, and give me the page? I'm curious. Oh wait, did you say he cited a particular page? Did I miss that? Fuck me. It says pages 41 to 68. It doesn't say a particular page. He just cites the entire paper. But I'm curious if there's a part in this paper that supports that. It could be. I'm just curious. By the early 19th, the ambassadors and consuls of the major powers were not just repeating information picked up haphazard and from a distance. The growing weight of European interest in the Near East made it necessary for the governments of Europe to be fully and precisely informed, while the desire of the Ottoman government and the dependent governments in Egypt and Tunisia to maintain their independence and reform their methods obliged them and their local governors to take the representatives of the European states at least partly into their confidence. This process of change took place this period by the large population in the evacuated part of resources sanctioned the Muslim Church chronicles. Page 26, 29. Oh, page 26 out of 29. Thus far, we've talked in terms of two factors: the government and the urban notables acting as a focus for local forces and able either to oppose the government or else oblige it to act through them. Fuck. I wonder what year we're at right now, or what. I don't know, I'm sure. But there was a third factor involved: the European embassies and consulates, particularly those of England, France, and Russia. Their influence was changing in scope and nature. Since the early 17th century, the European states had had interests of their own to preserve, and had done so by allying themselves with one or other party in the palace, the imperial divan, or the provincial divans. But in the 19th century, a new situation came into existence. Their power and interests were now so great that they were no longer willing simply to act through whatever government existed, or in other words, to allow the Ottoman central or local governments to provide the framework within which the activities of Europe should be conducted. They were now in a position to put pressure on the governments to become the kind of governments they needed. In particular, they were not willing to deal with the various populations of the empire throughout the government. European trade with the empire, in particular the textile trade, was growing quickly, and this meant not only that the European merchants should be protected, but that those involved in the trade with Europe, whether foreigners or Ottomans, should be able to deal directly with the population, to travel freely, not to bear vexatious burdens and impositions, to widen the markets for imports, to collect materials for exports, to tell producers what to produce, and lend them the money to do it. At the same time, for various reasons, different groups in the population wanted the protection of the European powers who were willing to give it to them. Rich and prominent individuals could be protected by attaching them in some way to the consulates and embassies. During the 1830s, something new happened. For the first time, Ottoman subjects were themselves made consular agents, but beyond that, whole communities were taken under protection. A policy which had been pursued by the French since the 17th and the Russians since the late 18th century was pursued by them, and others more consciously and deliberately in the 1840s and 50s. It was then that the British government, which had no obvious protégés of its own, established a connection with the Jews in Palestine, some of the Druses in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. Behind the protection of trade and religious minorities, there lay something else: the major political and strategic interests of the powers, and these also might make necessary a direct connection with the peoples of the empire. British communications with India must be kept open, and for this purpose, British consuls must have direct and friendly relations with the chiefs of Bedouin tribes, which lay across the routes. In their own interest, therefore, the European powers needed a certain kind of Ottoman government and a certain position for themselves inside the empire. To obtain this, they were prepared to put pressure on the government, and they were able to do so both because of their military strength and because of their connections to different groups of the empire. The Ottoman government, for its part, needed them. Only the armies of one European power could protect from the threats of another. In addition, political groups inside the government looked more than before to the support of European embassies and consulates in their struggles with other groups. This, in turn, strengthened the positions of the ambassadors and consulates even further. Okay, so this is about... basically, this is about Great Britain reaching out to particular peoples within the Ottoman Empire in order to strengthen collections, which did include Jewish people in Palestine, some of the Druses in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. Okay, so different groups in Lebanon. Okay. Hold on, what was my... His summary of that footnote is: Muhammad Ali's advance into Syria opened the Syrian question. New British policies were formulated as a result. One of the keys to the new approach was Palestine, the Jews a prominent part of its spearhead. In 1838, the British decided to station a British consular agent in Jerusalem, and in the following year opened the first European consulate in that city. During the 1840s and 50s, the British government, which had no protégés of its own, established a connection with the Jews in Palestine, around 9,700 in all, the Jews in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. Behind the protection of trade and religious minorities, there lay the major political... This is not a fair summary, right? So the paper that he was citing was basically saying that for the purposes... Also, he also steals this quote, and he doesn't quote it, which is also kind of weird. It might be a different, maybe there's a different in schools or in colleges. Maybe you're allowed to, take quotes or whatever. But in my high school class, I would get a fail for this. In the 1840s and 50s, it was then that the British government, which had no obvious protégés of its own, established a connection with the Jews in Palestine, some of the Druses in Lebanon, and the new Protestant churches. It's just interesting that he doesn't quote that. He quotes later on behind here, but maybe it's just a typo or whatever. It's not a direct quote, he paraphrased it. First of all, number one, paraphrasing is absolutely plagiarism, and number two, it is a direct quote. It's literally a direct quote, except he adds this around 9,700 in all, but... It's not uncommon to directly quote like that in long-form papers. Yeah, no. I'm not saying there's a problem with quoting things, but he doesn't quote this. This is passed off as his own writing here, unless I don't know how to read this particular paper. It looks to me as though he's passing this off as his own writing, and then the quote is down here. He quotes this section and he puts the footnote, but this entire section is actually quoted from the paper that we just read. But, I mean, regardless. Okay, hold on. Lycan linked us a video, though. A 1 minute and 19-second video. Oh, boy.
I also antagonized a lot of people by recognizing the state of Israel as soon as it was formed. Well, I had been to Potsdam.
Wait, former President Truman discusses the recognition of Israel.
I also antagonized a lot of people by recognizing the state of Israel as soon as it was formed. Well, I had been to Potsdam, and I'd seen some of the places where the Jews had been slaughtered by the Nazis. 6 million Jews were killed outright, men, women, and children, by the Nazis. And it was my hope that they would have a homeland where they could operate. So when the time came for that, we set up the Israeli government in Palestine, moved some of the Arabs out, and they were not moved out and thrown out. They were compensated for the land that they had to give up. The Jews organized a government over there, and it's been a successful one ever since. They've done things over there that never have been done in that part of the world before. And while it's a small republic, it's an energetic one. Not long ago, they had a fuss with Egypt. And if they hadn't been interfered with by the then President of the United States, Nasser would have been down.
You got like 1 minute. What? Hold on, because I got to leave the stream soon. What's up?
Yeah, sure. I read that article you sent me. It looks like about 54% of Palestinians support a two-state solution. And Hamas only has about 30% support. And I think 32% support the Fatah government.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think going forward, eliminating Hamas is absolutely a good idea. It seems like Hamas is definitely oppressing the people of Gaza. So, if I ever were to debate that topic, like with Jank, yeah, I think it's an extremely reasonable belief to say that Hamas is the oppressor of Gaza, not Israel.
Okay.
Yeah, they're supporting a two-state solution for the most part, and are supporting the Fatah government. So.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
All right, love you, buddy.
All right, take care.
Bye. Bro, Lycan is getting radicalized. He's sending me stuff like my mom does. What is this? He's sending me like pictures of stuff. What is happening?
In the Sudan, where he belongs.
Okay, so we got our 1 minute and 20-second video clip. He linked me text concerning Zionism, the Jewish state. And then he sent me this picture. The Jewish company is partly modeled on the lines of a great land acquisition company. It might be called a Jewish chartered company, though it cannot exercise sovereign power and has other than purely colonial tasks. The Jewish company will be founded as a joint stock company subject to English jurisdiction, framed according to English laws and under the protection of England. Its principal center will be London. I cannot yet tell you how large the company's capital should be. I shall leave that calculation to our numerous financiers. But to avoid ambiguity, I shall put it at 1,000 million marks. It may be either more or less than that sum. The form of subscription, which will be further elucidated, will determine what fraction of the whole amount must be paid at once. What is this website? The Jewish company. Don't look at chapter 2, the Jewish question. Who even wrote this? Or who was this by? Oh, by Theodor Herzl. Okay. He wasn't the main dude behind the Balfour Declaration, right? I'm trying to... Fuck, it was a long time. That was so much shit we read for that. Was he? Father of modern political Zionism. Oh, he died in 1904, loser. Finished the Truman video? That was it. It was 1 minute and 20 seconds. Look at the date. Oh, this is from 1896. The company will sell building sites at reasonable rates to its officials and will allow them to mortgage these for the buildings of their homes. The 7-hour day is the regular working day. This does not imply that woodcutting, digging, stone breaking, and 100 other daily tasks should only be performed during 7 hours. Indeed not. There will be 14 hours of labor, work being done in shifts of 3.5 hours. The organization of all this will be military in character. What was Lycan trying to prove with that video? I'm about to make mean assumptions, okay? But it sounds like Lycan has been told that there is a context that explains kind of like this large imperialist Western movement that has always sought to establish or reestablish the nation of Israel with Jewish people and have them slowly conquer the Middle East, I think is what he's trying to prove, or is the argument that he's making. And then the Truman video was part of that, I guess. Why don't you see what someone that knows what he's talking about has to say? See the interview of Piers with Mossab Hassan Youssef. Okay. There are original members of Zionism that did want full expansion of Palestine. I mean, I'm sure there are. It's been a while, but my understanding is when we talk about like original Zionism or Zionism pre-Balfour Declaration, there were like far more extremist sects of Zionism. However, if I remember correctly, like the Balfour Declaration and Zionist Jews did not originally have the support of the West, which seems to run contrary to what Lycan and whoever's around him is claiming. Because like I thought that the Balfour Declaration, I thought that guy had to run around and try to convince so many motherfuckers in Europe. They had to try to get like all these other European Zionists together. They had to convince people, I think in the US, it was a lot of work in Great Britain. They had like lobbyists, they were running all these politicians. I thought that it was quite a bit of work that this guy, I think it was like one dude that did a of work and trying to convince a ton of people in Great Britain to like back the Zionist project. And when that Balfour Declaration finally came out, the Balfour Declaration is like the weakest thing in the world. Isn't this like
Steven,
what?
Don't do that. Like, one of the reasons I'm pretty private about my shit like that is because I knew that chat was going to do it, and the day they found out, they're like, this is where Lycan's getting his opinions from. Don't do that. It's very condescending, and it makes it sound like I didn't do a single lick of things on my own end where I look things up and I
I'm sorry, hold on, wait. Yeah, to be clear, I'm not basing this on chat or anything. The only basis on is that if I get like 1 minute videos and then links to like massive things, I'm always like hesitant if the person is like going through it themselves. That's like always makes me sketchy.
Yeah, no, and don't get me wrong, like I'll totally say it, learning shit from other people, 1000%, but still do my own research, as they say.
Okay, so wait, so then walk me through this for what I'm missing here. Okay, so My understanding is that prior to 1917, prior to this Balfour Declaration, which was pretty weak, I think, right? It's not a very strong commitment to anything. That there was a lot of work that went into convincing like British leaders to even publish this and even to support this particular thing.
America did a lot of pressure, and that's what the point of that clip was. You made a comment about no one putting any pressure on Britain to create that state.
Hold up. Wait. That clip from Truman, that had to do with administering to the mandated Palestinian territory. I don't think that had to do with prior to like the Balfour Declaration. I'm pretty sure.
That's what it was, and that's what you were saying. You're like, I don't think the establishment of Israel by Britain was with Western pressure.
Okay, so I feel like the establishment of Israel, I could be wrong, and I'm welcome to being wrong, but I don't think the United States gave a about the establishing of Israel. I don't think we cared at all.
I mean, that from the horse's mouth of Truman there, it was like, yeah, we saw that, and it was like, yes, we were going to give them their country. We think they deserve this.
That's great that Truman said that, but we didn't. This was British mandated territory. It was British troops. It was British declarations. It was British white papers.
Now, again, I'll say, I haven't seen, other than Truman making this commentary, which seemed to align with things that people in your subreddit in the thread shitting on me were saying, which was that there was a ton of pressure on Britain to create this from the United States. So unless that's all wrong and just, scuttlebutt, that's my understanding of it until I find a new source.
Well, sure, but like, what was the pressure? Now, I know that there were Jews around the world. There were probably wealthy Jews in the United States that supported. I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah, think about it. I assume it's like we just saw this massive tragedy, the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were murdered systematically in one of the most horrible genocides in human history. And people were like, fuck, man. Well, we know they're trying to settle in this place. Let's British.
Wait. Okay, hold on. Wait, real quick. We need to get timelines correct, okay? Balfour Declaration was 1917. This was way before the Holocaust, okay?
I'm talking Holocaust. That's Truman's
okay, no, I understand. But the British mandate for Palestine, okay, that territory was administered for 2 or 3 decades prior to the Holocaust, okay? For 2 decades.
But they gave it up about 9 months, I think it was, before they were going to give it back to Palestine. They decided, never mind, we're going to give it to Israel. We're going to create Israel.
Okay, I would be curious to read about that. I don't know about that or what that is.
I mean, now I might be off by like a year or two on the date thing, but my understanding is that it was like just under a year left before they were going to give it back to Palestine when they gave it back.
Why would they give it back completely to Palestine? Palestine wasn't even like a group of people to give it to. There was no nation of Palestine at any point.
No, it wasn't a nation. These were the citizens pre-British control, Ottoman Empire, like before World War I, right? Before the end of World War I. These are original inhabitants. But then under British control, a significant amount of... You know what I hate about this topic? Is every time you say Jew or Jewish, you can sound like a Nazi if you are criticizing Israel. Anyway.
Hold on, I'm not calling you a Nazi. I don't think any of this has to do with Nazism.
No, the jokes in chat get to me. Because at the end of the day, I'm a two-stater. Like I'm not.
Wait, we're not talking. Hold on, well, I don't care about any of that. We're not talking about 2-state or 1-state or anything. I need to say it as I lay on thick criticism for the creation of Israel. I need to say I'm a two-stater. It's important because otherwise, Okay. I don't see a lot of support around the world for the creation of the state of Israel prior to literally Israel winning their war of independence in 48. I don't see a lot of support around the world for that. And if anything, it seems to be the opposite, that there's a lot of fighting from Jewish people around the world to try to get them to establish that state.
Well, I tell you what, my understanding is that Britain was pressured by the United States and other Western countries to help them create Israel since they own that territory. I have a documentary on it that I had been watching the other day, and I only got 10 minutes in, so I'll watch that and come back.
Okay, sure, but to be clear, I don't think Britain didn't create Israel, right? Britain left. After the mandate ended, Britain packed up and left, and then 7 countries decided to go to war with Israel. Israel won after they declared independence. And okay, well, we're here now. Britain didn't establish the state of Israel. They declared independence.
They didn't establish the state of Israel, correct. They gave that land to a significant number of Jewish people who were settlers.
Did they give... I should have read... I know they were moving a lot of Jewish people in, but I don't know if any formal giving of land had happened because it doesn't seem like any of the people there ever agreed to a formal delineation of borders. Like, all these white papers kept getting thrown out. At one point, or actually I think at like 3 different points, Arabs got so mad that Britain actually limited the amount of Jews immigrating into that territory. They were like, we're capping this to like 75,000 over some years. Like, you're not going to do it. So it seems like, if anything, Britain was starting to limit the number of Jews going in because Arabs were mad. And then at some point, once the mandate ended, Britain just like bounced. They were like, good luck, and they left.
So what's his name? That's why when it comes to I keep on saying Herzl. And
Herzl died in like 1907. I don't care about Herzl.
Because you have to understand that these people laid the foundation for what's happening now. Like, so when you were talking earlier to that other chatter, or whoever it was, Vegan Games maybe, when they were coming in, like, asking why you're looking up history. A lot of this is important now because the policies in place by the right-wing Israeli government now are predicated upon what was laid down by these people.
Okay, but then if that's true, like, I wouldn't analyze Marx to see what happened in Mao Zedong's China, or in Stalin's like Soviet Union, or in Vietnam, or anything else,
because
right?
we know now that those are bastardizations of it. But
well,
when it comes to this
hold
stuff,
on. But this guy was dead like 10 years before this Herzog guy was dead 15 years before the British mandate for Palestine even existed, right? So, like, why would I look to him? Wouldn't I just look, well, what was in the Israeli early, common laws, or what was in the Israeli Declaration of Independence?
Because if they're enacting policies in concert with the foundations laid by the father of Zionism and the founder of Israel, today, we would want to know exactly what they said, because it's important, because a lot of it hasn't changed.
Okay, well, if it hasn't changed, then I should just be able to see evidence of, like, Israel acting in accordance with that, right?
That's why I said but to understand that, you got to read up on the history of it, right? You got to read the words they laid down.
Well, sure, I understand the words. I understand the words they laid down, but then you should just be able to show me modern, or even like historical examples of, like, here is Israel doing this thing that's in accordance with the theory that you need to know.
All right. Well, I will come back in a state where I am capable of more concisely making my arguments. All right. I just wanted to say that I don't just absorb opinions through osmosis. Otherwise, I'd have held every opinion you ever had for many, many years. You know what I mean?
Sure, that's fine. But just, if you, for coming into the future, so here's the type of sources that I want. I'm looking for, like, policies, actions by governments, like actual things that have actually happened. I'm wholly disinterested in single line statements by politicians and, like, 30-second YouTube videos, in quotes from people that died, 150 years ago. Like, I'm wholly uninterested in that. So if you can find me examples of, like, actions by governing bodies, nation states, laws being passed, groups, like, stuff like that, that's the type of stuff that I'm interested in for these types of arguments, for me, I think. If you have historical, like, quotes, arguments, that's interesting, but you have to link it to some type of action, I think.
All right, we'll do, buddy.
Okay, I love you.
All right, enjoy your dinner tomorrow. Bye.
Be careful. Something I don't remember if I was saying this before I got here, but I think there were multiple flavors of Zionism that ran prior in Europe, with different types of Zionist movements that existed. Fuck, we read this whole Balfour Declaration thing. It took us like 3 or 4 days. It's so fucking boring. But yeah, there were like 1 or 2 dudes, this Balfour guy and another guy, who spent a lot of time, like, running around trying to convince every motherfucker to have Great Britain make, like, an official statement on committing to setting up a land for the Jewish people. But even Jews consider Herzl the founder of Zionism. He was even posthumously buried in Israel. The stuff he did certainly had an impact on later events. Sure, but then you can just show the stuff that he had, the impact that he had, right? Just look up labor Zionism on Wikipedia. It should be a short article. That's a Zionism that concretely won, and it wasn't Herzl's. Labor Zionism refers to the left-wing socialist variation of Zionism. For many years, it was the most significant tendency among Zionist organizations. It was seen as the Zionist sector of the historic Jewish labor movements of Eastern Europe and Central Europe, eventually developing local units in most countries with sizable Jewish populations. Unlike the political Zionist tendency founded by Theodor Herzl and advocated by Chaim Weizmann, Labor Zionists did not believe that a Jewish state would be created by simply appealing to the international community or to powerful nations, such as the United Kingdom, Germany, or the former Ottoman Empire. Rather, they believed that a Jewish state could only be created through the efforts of the Jewish working class making aliyah to the land of Israel and raising a country through the creation of a labor Jewish society with rural kibbutzim and moshevims and an urban Jewish proletariat. Many theoreticians of the Labor Zionist movement included Moses Hess, Nachman Sirkin, Burakov, and Aaron David Gordon, and leading figures of the movement included David Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir, and Burl Katznelson. So that's pretty important because David Ben-Gurion was the first prime minister of Israel, and he was the guy that, did he author the, I don't think he solo authored the Israel Declaration of Independence, but he was the one that made like the statement. He was the primary national founder of the state of Israel. So it's interesting that he belongs more to the labor Zionist movement, if he's considered as such, as opposed to the political Zionist movement. But people in chat are saying the current Zionism is closer to Herzl's rather than, I don't know who would have been like the progenitor of this one, but it's also possible, too, that modern Zionism is more extreme than in the foundation ever as well, right? Not true. It seems that way, that modern Zionism is more extreme because of the war. It seems like Palestinians should have just made their state of the 40s and gone from there. Yeah, I think one of the big issues that nobody talks about is the... I saw this as a talking point on Twitter a while ago, but one of the issues that nobody talks about is... the fact that there hasn't actually ever been like a Palestinian state ever. I don't know historically if there's ever been a Palestinian state. They've always been subjects of like another people's. But I don't know if that matters or not, if it's relevant or not. Who knows? We'll see. Now that I come back and look at this, now this is even funnier. I think people mean this and how there doesn't seem to be an end game. Will Israel just keep expanding? This chart is even funnier now. Palestinian loss of land. In 1946, Palestine had all of this land. In 47, they had all of this land. 49 to 67, they had this land, and then in 2000, yeah, this is kind of funny. Because like in 46, all of this was just mandate Palestine. None of this was allocated to Palestinians at all. In 47, the Palestinians rejected this. And the Israeli people actually accepted this, but the Palestinians rejected this. I don't know what the basis for this one is yet. 49 to 67? That was probably, I guess that's just the borders post-war. And then 2007 might be where they're at now. I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't know, it's funny. 48 to 67 is just Egypt and Jordan. 48 to 67 is just Egypt and Jordan. Okay. Do you think Jews buying land from landowners and getting the tenant farmer Arabs to leave is unethical? That's a hard one. That's something where I would have to read specifically about how those buys were done. Because my very slightly knowledgeable, my very slightly informed understanding is that it was Arab Palestinians that were selling land to Jewish people. And I mean, if they bought it, right? But, you know, if it's the fact that Jewish people are raising money from around the world, and they're raising money from around the world, and, you know, some Arab farmers are like, yeah, here, buy it, I want the money, and then they peace out, you know. Is that right or wrong? That's a hard one, I'm not sure. Oh, also, somebody emailed me and I missed this. This would have been an interesting response to Lycan. Jews did not seem like they had much positive influence in like the 20s, 30s, and 40s. There were just some incredibly persistent pro-Zionist people that were like pushing people and trying to pressure people to like make Israel. It wasn't like I think there was a quote. This would have been a nice quote to counter his Truman quote. I went down and I read. This is what the respective leaders of countries said when it came time to voting for. I think it was the UN partition plan. Truman later noted, the facts were that not only were there pressure movements around the United Nations unlike anything that had been seen there before, but that the White House, too, was subjected to a constant barrage. I do not think I have ever had as much pressure and propaganda aimed at the White House as I had in this instance. The persistence of a few of the extreme Zionist leaders, actuated by political motives and engaging in political threats, disturbed and annoyed me. Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. This guy, India, was super ass mad about it. He said the Zionists had tried to bribe India with millions. At the same time, his sister, Vijay, I think she got like threats or something, or that her life was in danger unless she voted right. And then there were also, to be fair, there were some counter pressures as well. Jamal Husseini promised the blood will flow like rivers in the Middle East. Concerning the welfare of Jews in Arab countries, a number of direct threats were made. Iraq's Prime Minister, Nuri al-Said, told British diplomats that if the United Nations solution was not satisfactory, severe measures should be taken against all Jews in Arab countries. So everybody was... Do you think the far left is coming back? I feel like the Palestine stuff is an inflection point where leftoids get a lot of support. I don't know. We'll see. It's also pretty weird that Palestinians have spent the last 7 years trying to destroy the Jews instead of just building their own country. What do they expect would happen when the neighboring country gets sick of them trying to wipe them off the map? Maybe, we don't know that yet, but okay. Hold on. Let me do messages real quick. Destiny, research from the U.S. recommended against a Jewish state at the time. The idea that the West was behind supporting Israel is absurd. Yeah, I know. Aaron was trying to like link me shit on Discord, trying to prove that like the whole West was in support of Zionism and blah blah blah. But it's always just like quotes or like things from that Herzl guy. But the actions of all the other nations and everything in the area, I can't see anything that supports that whatsoever. It's also good, I guess, for my arguments against Nazis, because Nazis always say that like Jews were running the world and everybody, you know, where they were controlling everything. But I guess you could argue, I mean, were they controlling everything if they had to run around and like try to convince people? I don't know. I guess you could argue one way or another if you wanted to. If they did convince people, it means they controlled the world. If they didn't even need to convince people, then they already control. I don't know. I guess you can always make an argument depending on. As a right-wing Israeli, Israel isn't perfect, and mistakes do happen, but there is no symmetry. Palestinians commit way more attacks against Jews than the other way around. You can look for a comprehensive list of terror victims in Israel. Maybe. I mean, the death counts, right? God, I'm so triggered. I'm still triggered that Lycan linked me that paper from the terrorist guy. I'm still triggered reading that paper. So we all know that Israel came from the failures of capitalism, the failures of liberalism, and the imperialist mindset of the West in order to appease the Jew. Me, dude. I'm so glad I could tell that was a dog shit paper on like the first two paragraphs. Fuck me. Oh my god. Okay, sorry. Triggered.